Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5, Qapla, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 11, Rosetta, as in the Rosetta Stone, although I guess that's supposed to be a secret. Spoiler alert, I'm going to spoil everything. Let's get started, and as they often do, we start with a previously on, and it gives me a chance to bring up something I forgot to complain about when they did it, which was the voting. They voted on whether they were going to attack the anomaly or make peaceful contact, and the president of the Federation told all the delegates to raise their hands if they were in favor of making peaceful first contact, or not raise their hands if they were in favor of attacking. So it might seem trivial, but you cannot make a vote like that in any modern, society. Robert's Rules of Order, they do not allow for a yes or no vote where you have to opt in to say yes, and if you don't opt in, it's automatically a no. It's the opposite vote. No. You say everybody in favor, raise your hands, and then everybody opposed, raise your hands. Now, what if you don't raise your hand for either? Then you're considered absent or present, or you're voted to not vote. But either way, it doesn't count as a vote opposing the vote. It accounts as a null vote. So it makes a difference. And if you don't understand why, just trust me, it does. It's completely unfair to do a vote how they just did it. So we see now that the 10C used to live on a gas giant, and we get some ridiculousness because we told first that they used to live in the clouds of the gas giant, but they're going to beam down to the solid core that's at the center of most gas giants to see what they can find. They also believe that a set of Dyson rings, not to be confused with the Dyson sphere that was shown in Relics, TNG Relics, which was far more impressive, but Dyson rings were created by this species, marking it was extremely advanced. Of course, it doesn't get all the power from the star, but it gets a lot of power from the star. Whatever. So we've got, they're going to beam down. So Book and Tarka are trying to figure out how they're going to get in to see the 10C. And they figured, well, they'll just wait for Michael to figure out a way. So the best thing they can do, their best plan, is to just cloak and hitch a ride in with the Discovery. Tarka says, Book says we'll just slip in behind them, stay cloaked. And Tarka says, even better, we'll land on the Discovery and go in with them unknown. And Book talks about an animal on Quajon that used to just land on the back of a bigger animal and fly around. And he's like, oh, it's a parasite. He's like, no, it's not a parasite. It did no harm. And they didn't even know it was there. So it's not quite a parasite. So Tarka says, fine. What he'll do is he'll create a patch that'll make Zora not know that they've attached themselves to the hull of the Discovery, and that this is some type of, the animal was called the night spray. So they'll night spray themselves off at Discovery before anybody knows they were there. But the problem is they have to apply this software patch manually, which means Tarka needs to be in engineering to apply this software patch. So now they're going to beam over together at Book's insistence because Book knows the ship so much better than Tarka. Which makes no sense as Tarka was on the ship and he is a genius, so you would think he knows it as well. So now we get a look at these cool black suits that Michael Burnham, Detmer, Saru, and Dr. Culber, for reasons unknown, are going to be on the away mission. Why would both the captain and first officer beam down? You know, the president also is concerned about that, as she should be. And Michael just assures her that Saru has to go down because he has more feelings than most beings in the galaxy. And she has to go down because, of course, she's a xenoanthropologist. So that's why they have to have both the captain and first officer off the ship, because feelings, and obviously Michael Burnham has to be there. So my favorite guy, the doctor, says in no uncertain terms, make the trip count, don't screw it up. And that pisses off the president because he says, don't screw it up. Really? I think it's because he's got a dick. This woman, she's like, you shouldn't be going down. I beg you to reconsider. We need to go right to the 10C and start trying to communicate right now. All of Earth hangs in the balance. We don't know how long it's going to take to communicate. Let's skip the planet and go. And of course, Michael Burnham says both Earth and Navarre, which was Vulcan, are home to her. So if we go down, we can cut communication time in half. And like, where are you getting this? And the Earth lady's like, might. This doesn't sound good to me. Michael Burnham's like, just trust me. I'm Michael Burnham. I'm always right. And of course, the Earth woman says, you're right. Michael Burnham promises she'll find something down there, and nobody says anything. The Vulcan doesn't say that's illogical to make such a promise. Why is there an ugly, this stupid Ferengi is up there? We've got another picture of the 25% different Ferengi. It's a terrible, terrible shot. And the president says, Captain Burnham, good luck. Everybody else stops, pointing forward. Nobody turns around. They all look at the shuttlecraft and they beam into the shuttlecraft. Why is the shuttlecraft not on the ground that they could just walk into it? And you know what? We're going to have the same issue when they beam out. I didn't realize it, but it was like, why is the shuttle continuously just floating? Why does the shuttle not land? It's like floating 10 feet in the air. Just land so you can walk in and walk off. I don't care how futuristic it is and how very unlikely anything is to go wrong using the transporter. It's like you still, if you had a step in your house, you're not going to replace it with a transporter. So just make the ship land. But I think it was too expensive to have the shuttle land because they spent all their money on these fancy new EV suits, which are impressive, and we'll see in a few minutes. But you can tell that's where all the money in this episode went, to the EV suits and the special effects for that. I'm also annoyed that when I skip the opening credits, it always brings me back to before this point, to where I see Alex Kurtzman's name. Okay, so they've entered the atmosphere of a rocky planet that you can see clearly from space. And yet the atmosphere is thick, and further, there are asteroids. There are asteroids just floating in the atmosphere, not falling. And Dr. Culver, to rub it in, says it's nice to know the laws of physics still apply outside our galaxy. No, the laws of physics do not work like that. Any asteroids at the top of the atmosphere would be falling into the planet, not floating up there like helium balloons from a kid's birthday party. So they realized that the 10C must have lived in the layers of the gas planet, and it's been unlike any species they've ever encountered. Because what? The only gas giant species ever existed is outside the galaxy? It makes no sense. I mean, even today, we're considering the fact that there might be life in gas giants, in the clouds, hell, even in the clouds of Venus, which is the closest to a gas giant of a rocky planet. But they land again. We don't see them disembark the shuttlecraft. The shuttlecraft was just floating, so I assume they beamed out. So Michael asks Saru if there's any life signs. If there's anybody out there, Saru says, I'm not getting any life signs. And Michael's like, okay, so we're alone. And Saru is like, no, we're not getting any life signs at all, including our own. He maybe should have led with that. For some reason, they all took down phasers. Now, they are trying to do peaceful first contact with the 10C. And the 10C, as far as they believe, used to live there. Why would you go down with phasers? I mean, I know why I would go down with phasers, but I come from TNG, where Captain Picard, on more than one occasion, reminded us no phasers. Even beaming over to a Romulan ship, don't take phasers. We don't want to startle them. But here, when there's a species that could wipe us out in the blink of an eye, why are they taking phasers? The phasers are not going to protect you. All you could do is inadvertently start a war. But they are all holding phasers and all like using them itchy trigger finger style. So Saru says there was light off of that. Saru has a panic attack or something. He's like, it must have just been vertigo from light. And he's like, what is that? Everybody looks, what is that? And Dr. Culver says, if I'm not mistaken, we're looking at the cusp of an extra large bone. And we zoom out and we see what looks like a rib of like the biggest dinosaur that ever existed. They assume immediately that that is the bone of a 10C. So why? I mean, if you landed on Earth 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 years in the future and you see a bone sticking out of the ground, would you assume that was a human bone? I mean, maybe, but that would be really stupid considering all the other animals that exist on Earth. What is the chance that the bone you would encounter is that of a human being and not that of a dog or a bear or a deer, a rodent, or anything else, or a mountain lion? Why would it be a human bone? So, Book and Tarka beam onto Discovery. Book chooses to beam right into a Jeffries tube, so they both have to duck to get in there. Now, they're wearing bands that prevent Zora from reading their life signals, their life signs, But wouldn't Zora notice all the places where they're accessing the computer? Apparently not. So our crack doctor says that the bone is weird. It's like a bone, but it's so there's no density to it, low density, and it would have been more like cartilage. Well, cartilage doesn't what's that word? Turn into fossil. Doesn't fossilize like bone. So they found some unknown hydrocarbon that's a little blue dust. And he's like, it's like nothing the Federation has ever seen. So they've already decided that a full planet evacuation was impossible and that this civilization was destroyed by asteroids 1,000 years ago. And why, if they floated through, if they floated through the clouds, is that a word? If they flew through the clouds, whatever. They said they used to float through the clouds. Why would they have built any structures on the ground? They found a structure built on the ground. I don't understand. If this was a gas giant and tons of heat and pressure, how would you even begin to build a structure on the ground? It doesn't make any sense. And if you're a giant like space whale flying through the air of the planet, why would you build a structure to begin with and find out that, well, we'll get to that. So this is my new favorite character, this doctor. I forget his name, but he has a puzzle to do, and apparently Dr. Kovich introduced him to crossword puzzles, 3D crossword puzzles. He needs a letter with the fifth letter is G for something you need to commit. And the president says, oh, mission. But he's like, no, fifth letter is G, and it's 10 letters. So now she's pissed at him for being honest. And he's like, what? Whether we worry about tomorrow or not, it's going to arrive just the same. He's not sure there's anything they can do to help. And she's like, these delegates need to feel supported to do their best work. Anyway, the president then puts in the word for him into the puzzle, because of course she does, because she's so super smart. And she figured out the word was obligation. And now he's looking at it and he's so happy. So Book and Tarka are again accessing the computer to see if the room is empty. And just by chance, the room is not empty, but the room has the president of Navarre and the United Earth delegate talking. It's the mess hall. The mess hall. So they were meant, if the mess hall happened to be empty, they could take a shortcut. It's not only not empty, there's a dozen people in it. But for some reason, they are intruding on these two. I guess a camera is watching them and recording what their conversation, and Book and Tarka are listening in on it. And anyway, it turns out the Earth delegate is very against the peaceful first contact. She's trying to explain to the president of Navarre how they should have gone directly into the anomaly, and the president of Navarre is trying to explain how, Michael's dealing with this. So anyway, they move on. They can't use the shortcut. We're back on this weird planet. Things are just floating in the air. It doesn't make sense. Why are things floating? in the air? Is there technology involved? Is it just hydrogen in the bubble, like a hydrogen bubble? We don't know. They don't scan it. They don't tell us what's happening. Why are all these things flying? We do get a really cool look at these EV suits, which look really good, but work like crap. So Dr. Kober decides that now is a good time to give Mr. Saru a full examination. And Saru is again having one of his, I'd call it a panic attack, but it's a very real paranoid delusion that people were attacking him. Michael and Dietmar again are walking around, guns drawn, trying to figure out what this place was. Michael's like, maybe it was a worship area or an arena, some type of community construction. She's like, we're looking for technology or artifacts, anything now give some cultural context to what this is. Saru is not having it. And he's like, something's wrong. Something is causing him to feel like this. And Dr. Kober, the worst doctor in the fleet, is saying, I don't think so, until he gets it too. He touches Saru's arm, and now he's having the same delusions. And Saru's like, do you understand now? He's like, I do. Because you know what? It would have paid for you to understand before and not question your patient, you stupid schmuck. Okay, so Book and Tarka come out on deck 17. They're clear. I guess nobody's ever on deck 17. So Tarka is going to go install the patch, but Book's got a change of plans. Book is going to go talk to the Earth delegate and get her on their side. That she can keep them apprised of any changes. It'll keep them ahead of any issues. And so the plan's running out of time. Book is pretty sure he can change her mind to work with them. And they know there's a shuttlecraft missing, but they don't know who's on it or how long it'll be gone for. So Harker is like, okay, you do it. You go convince her. And Book leaves to go do that. Deck 13. It's what did that say? I gotta pause that and go back. I did not see that the first time. It's President. Oh, he's faking a message from President Tarina, from the Vulcan president. It says we need to speak further. Deck 13, come alone. Right. So come alone to an entire deck of the ship. That's like, oh my God. If I was working in an office building and I'm like, come to level, 12 on a 20-story office building, like I'd be the only person on level 12. You need maybe a little more detail, like come to the holodeck or come to, cargo bay 12. So now Michael is touching some sand, and Detmer says the room is empty. No cultural relics, no nothing. And Detmer offers to take Saru back to the shuttlecraft. She's never seen him like this. Michael Burnham says, not yet. She's got to make this mission count. And Detmer says, we're all here to help. It's not just you. And now Michael Burnham is experiencing the paranoid delusions. And Detmer comes to help her, and Michael tells her not to come. And Dr. Kober is there and says that your biometrics are indicating rapidly. increasing rapidly, whatever biometrics are. And Kolber says, it's happened to me and Saru, but Detmer's biosigns haven't changed. Michael Burnham realizes that something is coming through the suits. They've got 5 minutes to figure out what's going on. Says Detmer to stay back and keep safe. The mission comes first. If they're not able to fix this, she's going to have to go back to the shuttle alone to contact Discovery. So Tarker's going to he's going to pull up one of these cameras again to see what's going on in engineering. They have this replicator in engineering that also makes food. And Jet Reno is there, and she's talking to Tal. Wow, she smacks Tal in the head. And Reno's like, there's got to be something in that head of hers that upstaged the Klingon warrior she was talking about. Yeah, because in this galaxy, at this universe, at this time, Klingons are just scary things we talk about to scare children. Because nobody's seen a Klingon. At least not us. Oh, so Tal is talking about how she wants to be more like Detmer. And Jet Reno says it's pretty safe to assume, no matter how calm anybody is, they're actually a mess on the inside. And Tal's like, I've never seen her flinch. She's always got it together. And Jet Reno's like, well, I asked her what she was like before she brought us through the wormhole and crashed. Because Detmer was very scared. Jet Reno says, nobody's always cool like that. Jet says, if you admire her so much, why don't you get to know her, have a conversation? And Tal's like, I wouldn't really know how to start that conversation, even though she has 6 or 7 lifetimes of experience as she is a Trill. At least she has a Trill inside of her. And Jet Reno says, well, tip, don't start with I want to be you. And that's clearly like a 3D printer again that looks like a replicator. Back on the planet, they're trying to figure out what was in common, that the 4 of them figure out what happened. And spoiler alert, that blue dust, which was an unknown hydrocarbon, well, guess what? That made it through their suit. Now, you would think a space EV suit would keep everything out, but for reasons unknown that only poorly paid writers might be able to figure out, these EV suits let in stuff that they don't know what it is. They're only programmed to block things that they know are bad. Literally, if they don't know it's bad for you, they let it in. So they let in the dust. But you could say, well, they built it that way. No, because they fix it by just reprogramming it right now to leave the dust out. So once they reprogram the suit to not allow in the unknown ingredient, the unknown hydrocarbon, everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. That's it, recalibrated, and it's all good. They can breathe easily again. Well, why didn't they just have the suits on this to begin with? Michael was so glad that Detmer was paying attention in the EV training. But Saru's respiration is still elevated a bit. He's okay. He had forgotten what the sensation of fear was like. Oh, PTSD therapy came in handy as she remained remarkably calm while everyone else was struggling. Through the archway, they found something. We don't know what it is. Michael says, let's go find out what. And again, guns raised. Linus, he was literally just a joke on an elevator, and they made him a regular character. The replicators are malfunctioning on all these other decks. It started making steamed bananas. Jet says every word of that is bad news. If we lose replicators out here, we starve to death. Wow. No packs, no emergency rations. Okay, so that was just the diversion Tarka needed to get everybody out of engineering, because nobody will stay in engineering for a replicator problem. And here's the Earth delegate looking for President Tarina. She's just on the deck saying hello. This was kind of weird now that she thinks about it. And oh, it's Book. And she's like, that message was from you. And they're like, yes, they're fighting. He's like, my ship is nearby. She said, give him one reason she shouldn't call security. Book says he's going to help, but he needs 2 minutes of her time. She's got a knife to his neck. She's like, now the Earth is in the path of a more powerful DMA thanks to him. My goal then, my goal now is to destroy the power. He lost his home. You're about to lose yours. He knows what it's like. But all you want to do is take action. And he can. And the DMA for good. She's like, if you have a plan, she needs every detail. Right? She's like, right now, one of Discovery's shuttles is on the planet. Is it Michael down there? She'll get what they need. Once she does, the ship will attach to Discovery, cloak, find the DMA's power source, disable it. Earth will be safe. She's like, if you believe so firmly in Captain Burnham, why not trust that first contact will succeed? He says he has faith in Michael, but not the 10C. He can't put the risk of billions of lives on that. And you? She's like, how do I fit in? He's like, just stay in contact. Tell us what our plans are, so we can not put Discovery or everyone at risk. Okay. So the delegate says, this has to be a backup plan only. If the 10C capitulate before United Earth is in the red zone, you promise you and Tarka step down. Book makes the promise, even though he knows for a fact Tarka will never step down. So Book just lied. However, they're less than 18 hours away from being destroyed. How is that not already the red zone? So Saru is noticed that there's a new hydrocarbon different from the one outside. So these pillars contain traces of what Dr. Kober presumes is their DNA. But the DNA are undeveloped infants. So this was a cocoon. This was a nursery. So they prioritize life, its cultural context. They love their little ones, just like humans love their babies. So they'll have something to talk about. So Michael Burnham decides she's going to breathe in this new compound because the other one was fear. So what is this? Oh, it's love. She says it's love, but it's actually, when she explains it, contentment. She says it feels like love, but her explanation is more like contentment, which I wouldn't wouldn't expect a young writer to really understand the difference, but there is a difference. And yet everybody decides to breathe it in, including Detmer. Everybody wants to breathe in the love or the contentment. She's like, I remember feeling this with her parents. Detmer too. So, I mean, this is a beyond stupid idea that 5 or 4 people that have literally the fate of the world, the fate of the entire galaxy is in their 4 hands, and they all decide to breathe in an alien substance. They could all die. They could have some fatal disease now. It is beyond reckless what they are doing. Not to mention the click is talking every minute they're away. They're all going to just get high. This is so fucking stupid. So Michael Burnham says, we're feeling love and safety here in the nursery, but outside where everybody died was fear. These hydrocarbons are affecting them almost identically. So it's like, oh, maybe emotions are universal. So Saru is like, no, this might connect us, but he doesn't know how it makes sense for first contact. But there is something here, Burnham. They need to reset their EV filters, finish scans, and get samples. They got to get back to Discovery. Well, finally. Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse. Tarka is installing the patch in engineering, selling a book. What's the status? Anyway, Jet Reno is coming back. What kind of idiot would pull a practical joke in the middle of an existential threat, says Jet. So why doesn't Tarka beam out right now? Right this second, he's finished. There is nothing else he need do. And it's like, Jet Reno, if somebody's screwing around, today is not the day. And she looks over and she says, she finds Tarka and says, tell me I just spoiled a surprise party. So Michael says, we know the hydrocarbons bring out different emotions, but how and why? And Dr. Colbert says, chemicals bring out different emotions. And Saru is talking about species that communicate through chemicals. Detmer says, when she was a kid, she didn't need to be in the same place to know how her dad was in a dark place. She could just feel it. And Michael Burnham says that he could use pheromones. He's like, maybe these are the pheromones of the 10C. The pheromones don't look like that. They don't act like that. And what Detmer is explaining is not pheromones. Now Michael says, what if this is our Rosetta Stone? Providing context. Michael laughs, says, nice work, everybody. This is what we came for. Got to get this back to the team. And Dr. Colbert is looking at it again. If he could mass produce this, he could have a nice drug empire set up. I think that's how this series ends. Dr. Colbert becomes a drug kingpin. So the shuttlecraft is back in comms range and on their way home. And Dietmar apologizes to Burnham for not smoking, for breathing in the drug. And Captain Burnham says, if you apologize anymore, I will demote you to ensign. You're going to become our new Tilly. Saru says it's freeing to acknowledge we would not be who we are if we didn't experience. So maybe that's why the 10C created the hyperfield to protect themselves, says Michael. So they would never again have to experience that fear and pain. So Dietmar's like, they understand what it's like to have their home destroyed. Now they're doing it to us. And Kober says if they can feel, they can connect. We have every reason to believe that they'll stop if we can make them feel what we feel. Saru says, but doctor, it's possible they already know, but simply don't care that's happening to them. And they all feel bad. So now Stamets says they sent dots down to the planet, which are, of course, the droids. They sent the droids down to the planet, and they collected 16 samples of hydrocarbons. Each corresponds to a different emotional state. So you should have just sent the dots down to begin with. It sounds like they were much more efficient than sending 4 random people. So the doctor, Japanese guy, says that the Rosetta Stone needed 2 known languages to allow them to decipher the third, but still an excellent start, as he looks back at the president, who for some reason doesn't like him being less than optimistic. The president of Navarre offers Saru a chance to stroll with her on the holodeck. I've often wondered, and this isn't limited to Discovery, but how do you get time on the holodeck? Is the president of Vulcan, was this her time? Like, how does she? I mean, on the Enterprise D, there were multiple holodecks, so you could easily believe there were more holodecks than people who wanted to use it. Although I would find it hard to believe, considering the number of civilians and people who didn't need to be doing anything at any particular time. But on Discovery right now, there's 1 holodeck. And who gets to use it? How does the president of Navarre know it's going to be empty? Does she just get to throw out the person that's in there? I mean, I don't understand. Now Book is hiding behind the wall where Michael was to see her. I don't know how he was watching her. I assume through one of those creepy cameras that I guess is built into the ship. Anyway, the Earth delegate had let him know that Michael was coming back, so Book knew to hide in the Jeffries tube of the shuttle bay so he could watch. We have a quick scene with a Morn-like character at the bar of the Discovery, and what appears to be a Ferengi-looking bartender. Kind of weird. I don't know when Discovery got a Ferengi bartender. I think that would make more sense on a station, but maybe that's I assume I will call it an Easter egg, but it's more, to be honest, it's more disturbing than anything. So Tal is having a very awkward conversation with Dietmar about Well, just trying to get to know her. Also, earlier, Jet Reno had brought up that she thought Tal was into Detmer and was giving her ideas on how to have a relationship with Detmer. And it's like we forget, or maybe they forget, maybe they don't forget, that Tal is 16 or 17 years old. Michael Burnham saw Dr. Colbert lingering in the nursery when they were leaving. It was nice to feel those moments of peace. He just wishes he could have stayed a little longer. Or you wish you could be a mother. Which is it? Oh, he's like, how he felt what the 10C felt today. Their fear, their love. And they destroyed Quajon. And the fucking, nobody gives a shit about the little space station they destroyed. And what if Saru's right? What if they know that they've done and they just don't care? How do you connect with a species like that? Hint, you've done it before. You'll do it again. So the Discovery is at warp again, and my book ship is attached to the hull of Discovery, and Book comes on, and he says, I've got some news, and what do we see? Jet Reno is in what appears to be a makeshift holding cell, and Jet Reno says, nothing like coming home to an unexpected hostage. End of episode. Tarka, I guess, overpowered Jet Reno, which, okay, believable, but done off screen, and beamed her off with him. If Zora had to be patched so that she wouldn't detect a ship on the hull, how is it Zora doesn't detect all the people accessing her, right? I mean, even now, to these days, when a computer is accessed, it logs who is accessing them. So wouldn't Zora be making those basic, logs as to who accessed her, where and when? And if somebody accessed her who wasn't a member of the crew, wouldn't that set off an alarm? And if all those failed, wouldn't the fact that a member of the crew beamed off the ship without notice, wouldn't that be an issue? How long will it be before Jet is missed on Discovery? Basically, the only person who was in engineering, for all purposes, almost a chief engineer. How long will the starship go before they realize Jet Reno is missing? And once they realize she's missing and they look into the logs, doesn't that basically nullify everything he did to make Zora not notice they were there? It just seems completely ridiculous to me that they would go so far in this episode to make sure Zora doesn't notice them, but then be so reckless as to access systems and kidnap a hostage. He could have just, I don't, it'd be dark, but he could have killed her and left. And yes, they would have had to figure out how she died. But to be honest, I feel like it's more believable you fake an accident than to kidnap somebody. Or even better, he could have just beamed out when he did, and he would have just been gone. Nobody would have even known he was there. There was no reason he had to be caught, except for the plot. It is sad and ridiculous. And man, was this another boring episode. We go, yet another episode. We don't see the 10C. I don't know if we're ever going to see the 10C. This is damn near the worst Discovery episode of the season. It's not as terrible as some of the most awful episodes in that they don't purposely destroy prior canon. They're just so stupid. Even their own canon, they don't follow. EV suits that don't block unknown organisms, unknown chemicals. I mean, literally, they said that the suit only repels chemicals that it can identify. What the fuck is the point of a suit that would let in unknown pathogens? Literally. That's what they said. If the suit couldn't identify it, it didn't block it. It only blocks known chemicals. But it could be programmed to block unknown chemicals because they did that as soon as they wanted to do that. Why would you let everybody try the space the space drugs? You would need at least one person, if not 3 of the 4, to not try the space drugs. You might make an exception for one person, but once you figured it out, no one should be doing them all. Certainly not everybody. Anyway, this sucked. 1.5 out of 10, and you'd have a much better time watching Star Trek Picard instead. Qapla all, bird out.